Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about sparkle duns. This is a fly that Craig Matthews of West Yellowstone, Montana introduced to us. And today it's a March Brown sparkle dun that we're going to tie. This is going to be one of the bigger mayflies that comes off in the season. The first thing we'll do is get the thread started on the hook, about a hook eye length behind the eye. And that's where we'll establish our tie-in point. We'll build up a good thread base so that the deer hair that we're going to use is not going to slip around the hook. After we bring the thread back to the tie-in point, we'll take our deer hair and stack it. You always want to make sure before you stack the hair that you comb it out to get the underfur out, and that way you get a good even stacking. Once you establish the tie-in point, you make 2 loose pinch wraps around the deer hair and the hook, and once that's done you pull straight down, and that causes the deer hair to flare, which is what you want. Once you've pulled straight down and made the deer hair flare, you want to take 4 or 5 good turns of thread around the deer hair, and then take your thumb and forefinger, bring the deer hair back, and then 5 or 6 turns in front of it to make sure that that wing stands up. At this point it's a good idea to put a half hitch on the hook just to save the work. The next step is to trim the deer hair. We'll trim it at an angle, which will make a nice ramp for a smooth tapered body. We'll be sure to trim all the straggling fibers so they won't get in the way, and we'll be ready to take the thread and wrap it around the deer hair ramp to make it nice and smooth. We'll make touching wraps of thread, and as always we'll be still paying attention to those straggling hairs that are left over. The next thing we'll do is we'll put in our shuck. The shuck yarn I'm using is from Fly Tires Dungeon out in Montana. He has great products at reasonable prices, and so that's what I use. But there's so many products that you can use. There's Zelon and Antron, and available at all different fly shops and lots of different manufacturers. When the shuck yarn gets trimmed, you want to make sure you don't pull tight when you're trimming it. You want to just hold it loosely and trim. That way it won't spring back and shorten your shuck. After the ribbing is tied in, we'll work the thread back to the bend of the hook so that the dubbing can begin at the base of the tail. At the material description at the beginning of the video, the dubbing called for is superfine, but you can use any floating dubbing. If you want a body with some sparkle, that's perfectly fine. Any of the brands that are floating are acceptable. Take small pinches of dubbing and work it onto the thread. It's better to use small amounts so that the body doesn't get too bulky. Start the thread at the base of the tail and take tight touching wraps, working the thread to the back of the wing. Continue adding small amounts of dubbing to the thread to form a tapered body. When you reach the back of the wing, you'll be ready to add the rib to the body. Take the ribbing thread and make even open spiral wraps to the back of the wing. For a size 12 hook, 5 turns should be enough. Secure the thread with 2 or 3 tight wraps of thread and then trim it. After that, you'll be able to put the rest of the dubbing on and finish the fly. With your thumb and forefinger, pull the wing back and wrap the dubbing in front of the wing, making sure that the deer hair stands up. At this point, make a 3 or 4 turn whip finish and cut your tying thread. With your thumb and forefinger, gently fan the wing to a desired shape. That's the March Brown Sparkle Dun, a fly that's easy to tie and a pleasure to fish. Thank you for looking at this video. I hope it was informative, and I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.